Dr. Hana Kim pressed her face against the observation window of the research vessel Harmony. Below her stretched the green and gold landscape of Kepler 440c, a planet that had taken them 8 months to reach from Earth. The morning sun painted the rolling hills in warm colors, and she could see herds of strange creatures moving across the plains like living clouds. Beautiful, isn't it? Captain Jiho Park said as he joined her at the window. His weathered face showed the kind of tiredness that came from months in space, but his eyes still held wonder when he looked at new worlds. More than beautiful, Hannah replied, checking her tablet for the day's scan results. The biodiversity readings are off the charts. We're looking at species that evolved completely separate from Earth life, yet some of the patterns are remarkably similar. She had been the lead xenobiologist on 3 previous missions, but this planet felt different somehow. The life here seemed more complex, more organized than what they usually found on newly discovered worlds. Any signs of intelligent life? Jiho asked, though they both knew the answer. The orbital scans had shown no cities, no technology, no radio signals, just an endless wilderness filled with creatures that had never seen a human face. Not in the traditional sense, Hannah said carefully, but some of the animal behavior patterns are interesting. The other crew members? Hannah returned to her preparations for the day's expedition. As a xenobiologist, she would be among the first to set foot on the planet's surface. Along with Security Chief Minho Lee and Engineer Do-Yeon Song, 2 hours. Later, Hannah felt the familiar excitement that came with stepping onto a new world. The air was thin but breathable, with a sweet smell that reminded her of jasmine flowers. The grass beneath her boots was purple-tinted and made soft rustling sounds as she walked. "Stay close to the landing shuttle," Minho said, checking his weapon for the 3rd time. "We don't know what's out there." Hannah understood his caution, but she also knew that fear could blind them to the wonders around them. She set up her equipment and began taking readings, while Do-Yeon worked on establishing a communication link with the ship. The first few hours passed quietly. They cataloged several small creatures that looked like a cross between rabbits and wet. Lizards and Hannah collected samples of the local plant life. Everything seemed normal for a first-day survey. Then she saw it at the edge of the forest. Partially hidden by the strange blue-leafed trees, a large white shape moved between the shadows. At first, Hannah thought it might be a fallen log or a pale boulder. But then it shifted, and she caught a glimpse of powerful muscles beneath pristine white fur. "Minho," she called softly, not wanting to startle the creature. "Look at 3 o'clock, near the tree line." The security chief turned and immediately reached for his weapon. "What is that thing?" The creature was enormous, at least the size of an earth lion, with a build that suggested both strength and grace. Its fur was completely white, not the cream or yellow of most pale animals, but a pure white that seemed to glow in the dappled sunlight. Most striking of all were its eyes, which appeared to be a deep blue, almost violet color.
"Oh.
"It looks like some kind of big cat," Do-Yeon said, joining them. "But I've never seen coloring like that." "Albinism," Hannah said, her scientist mind already working. "It's rare but not impossible." Blue eyes suggest it's not true albinism, though. It's more likely leucism, a partial loss of pigmentation. The creature sat perfectly still, watching them with an intelligence that made Hannah's skin prickle. Most animals would have either fled or shown some sign of aggression by now. This one simply observed, as if it was studying them just as carefully as they were studying it. "Should I scare it off?" Minho asked, though he kept his weapon lowered. Hannah said quickly. "It's not showing any aggressive behavior. Look at its posture. It's curious, not hunting." She was right. The creature's ears were forward, not flattened back in anger or fear. Its tail moved slowly, almost like a cat considering whether to approach a new person. Everything about its body language suggested interest rather than threat. "I'm going to try to get closer," Hannah said, pulling out her recording equipment. "That's not a good idea," Minho said firmly. "We don't know anything about this planet's predators." "It's not acting like a predator," Hannah replied, "and this is why we're here, to study and learn." She took a slow step forward, then another. The creature's head tilted slightly, following her movement. When she was about 20 feet away, she stopped and crouched down, making herself appear smaller and less threatening. "Hello there," she said softly, feeling a bit foolish for talking to what was essentially an alien animal. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature's ears twitched. At the sound of her voice, then to everyone's surprise, it took a careful step forward. "Hannah," Minho warned. But she held up a hand to stop him. The white creature moved with liquid grace, each step deliberate and controlled. When it was about 10 feet away, it sat down again, mirroring Hannah's crouched position. For several minutes, they simply looked at each other. Hannah felt an odd sensation, as if the creature was not just seeing her but understanding her in some way. Its blue eyes seemed far too intelligent for a simple animal. "The way it's looking at you," Dione said quietly. "It's like it recognizes you or something." Hannah felt the same thing. There was a quality to the creature's gaze that reminded her. More of meeting a new person than encountering a wild animal. She reached slowly into her pack and pulled out one of their emergency ration bars. "You probably can't eat this," she said, unwrapping the bar and breaking off a small piece. "But maybe you'll understand the gesture." She placed the piece of food on the ground between them and then sat back. The creature looked at the offering, then back at her. After what seemed like a long consideration, it moved forward and sniffed. The food, to Hannah's amazement, it picked up the piece with remarkable delicacy and ate it. Then it looked at her again, and she could swear she saw something like gratitude in those blue eyes. "Well, I'll be," Minho said, lowering his weapon completely. "I've never seen anything like that." The creature stood, and after one last long look at Hannah, turned and disappeared back into the forest. But something told her this would not be their last meeting. "Did you get all that recorded?" she asked Doyan. "Every second," he replied, still staring at the spot where the creature had vanished. "But I'm not sure anyone back on the ship is going to believe it." As they packed up their equipment to return to the shuttle, Hannah found herself thinking about those intelligent blue eyes. The creature had shown behavior that went far beyond simple animal instinct. There had been recognition there, something that looked very much like deliberate communication. She decided to call it beak, the Korean word for white. Somehow she knew they would meet again soon. Back on the Harmony that evening, Hannah presented her findings to the crew. Most of them listened politely to her description of the various plant and animal life they had catalogued. But when she mentioned the white creature, the mood changed. Probably just an albino lion-type predator. Communications. Officer Unichoice said with a shrug. "Lots of planets have big cats." The behavior was unusual, Hannah insisted. It showed signs of higher intelligence. Captain Jihu looked interested but cautious. "What kind of signs?" The way it approached us was deliberate, calculated. It understood the food offering as a gesture of friendship, the eye contact. It was like talking to another person. "Animals make eye contact all the time," Minho said, though his tone was thoughtful. "But I'll admit this one seemed different somehow." "Different how?" the captain asked. "Like it was thinking about us the same way we were thinking about it," Minho replied. Despite the crew's skepticism, Hannah felt certain that tomorrow would bring new discoveries. As she prepared for sleep in her small quarters, she found herself looking forward to returning to the planet's surface. Something told her that Beak would be waiting for her. 3 days had passed since Hannah's first meeting with the white creature, and she had returned to the same spot near the forest edge every morning. On the second day, Beak had appeared for only a few minutes before disappearing again. On the third day, he had stayed longer and accepted another piece of food now. On the fourth morning, Hannah sat quietly on a fallen log, waiting. The purple grass around her swayed in the gentle breeze, and the strange bird-like creatures of Kepler 442c sang their alien songs from the blue-leafed trees. "You're becoming predictable," Minho said as he checked the area for any signs of danger. He had insisted on accompanying her every day, though he now kept his distance and let her work. "Good science requires patience," Hannah replied, though she had to admit she was more eager than usual. Something about Beak drew her back each day. A feeling she couldn't quite explain. Movement in the shadows caught her attention. Beak emerged from the forest, moving with the same careful grace she had noticed before. But today, something was different. Instead of stopping at his usual distance, he came closer. He's learning to trust you, Minho observed quietly. Hannah slowly reached into her pack and pulled out not just food, but also a small metal tool she used for soil samples. She placed both items on the ground and watched to see what Beak would do. The white creature approached the items and sniffed each one carefully. To Hannah's amazement, he picked up the tool first, turning it over in his mouth as if examining it. Then he set it down gently and ate the food. "Did you see that?" Hannah whispered. He investigated the tool before eating. It shows curiosity about objects that aren't food. "Maybe he was just being careful," Minho replied, but his voice carried doubt. Beak looked directly at Hannah and made a soft sound, almost like a purr, but different. Then he did something that made both humans freeze in surprise. He picked up the metal tool again and brought it to Hannah, setting it down at her feet before backing away. He returned it. Hannah breathed. He understood that it belonged to me. The following week, these meetings became longer and more complex. Beak began showing behaviors that went far beyond simple animal intelligence. He would arrange small stones in patterns, almost like he was trying to communicate. When Hannah drew shapes in the dirt, he would study them carefully and sometimes try to copy them with his paw. "The energy readings are getting stronger," Yuno reported during one of their evening briefings. "Whatever is causing those strange signals, it's definitely connected to your furry friend." "What kind of energy, Captain?" Jiho asked. "Hard to say. It's not like anything in our databases. The patterns change when Dr. Kim is near the creature, almost like they're responding to each other." Engineer Dojan nodded thoughtfully. "I've noticed something odd, too. Yesterday, when the creature was close to our equipment, some of the systems started behaving strangely. Not malfunctioning exactly, but responding to inputs that weren't there." "What do you mean?" Hannah asked. "The communication. Array started scanning frequencies we hadn't programmed it to check. The environmental sensors began recording data patterns I've never seen before. It was like something was trying to interface with our technology." Hannah felt a chill of excitement. "You think Beak was somehow interacting with our machines?" "Think something was," Doyan said carefully. "Whether it was the creature directly or some kind of field it generates. I can't say." That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She found herself thinking about all the small details that didn't quite fit. The picture of a simple animal. The way Beak seemed to understand complex instructions. How he never approached when other crew members were present, only when she was there. The deliberate patterns he made with stones and sticks. The next morning, she decided to try something new. Instead of meeting Beak at their usual spot, she waited at her equipment station about 50 yards away. She wanted to see if he would come to her instead of expecting her to come to him. She didn't have to wait long. Beak appeared at the forest edge and looked around until he spotted her. Without hesitation, he began walking directly toward her. "New location. He knew where to find you," Minho said with wonder. "How did he know you had moved?" Hannah was asking herself the same question. She watched as Beak approached, noting how he carefully avoided stepping on any of the delicate equipment scattered around her work area. A wild animal might have knocked things over or shown fear of the unfamiliar objects. Beak moved between them as if he understood their purpose. "Hello, Beak," she said softly. "I have something different for you today." She had brought a simple puzzle toy, the kind used to test intelligence in earth animals. It was a clear container with a treat inside that could only be accessed by manipulating a sliding panel. Beak examined the puzzle with intense interest. He touched it gently with his paw, then picked it up carefully in his mouth and turned it around. Within minutes, he had figured out how to slide the panel and retrieve the treat. "That's incredible," Minho said. "Most earth animals would take much longer to solve that, if they could solve it at all." But Beak wasn't finished. After eating the treat, he continued to manipulate the puzzle, sliding the panel back and forth as if he was studying how it worked. Then he looked at Hannah with those intelligent blue eyes and made a series of soft sounds. The sounds were definitely intentional communication. They had rhythm and pattern, almost like a simple language. Hannah found herself responding without thinking. "I wish I could understand you," she said. "I think you're trying to tell me something important." Beak tilted his head and made the sounds again, this time with slight variations. It was like he was trying different words to see if she would understand. "Hannah Minho," said quietly, "I think you need to document all of this very carefully. What we're seeing here, it's not normal animal behavior." She nodded, already thinking about how to present her findings to the crew. The problem was that most of them still saw Beak as just an unusual, but ultimately simple creature. They needed to understand that something much more significant was happening. Over the next few days, the bond between Hannah and Beak grew stronger. He began staying for longer periods, sometimes for hours at a time. He would watch her work with intense interest, and she found herself explaining her procedures to him as if he could understand. The strangest part was that he seemed to understand. When she was frustrated with a difficult measurement, he would approach and sit nearby as if offering comfort. When she was excited about a discovery, his body language would become more animated, matching her energy. "It's like he reads your emotions," Yuna observed during one of her visits to the surface. "I've been watching the energy readings, and they change with your mood. When you're happy, the signals get brighter. When you're worried, they become more scattered." "You think we're connected somehow?" Hannah asked. "I think there's definitely some kind of interaction happening, whether it's telepathic, empathic, or something else entirely, I can't say." That afternoon, something happened that changed everything. Hannah was working on her tablet, recording notes about the day's observations. When Beak approached and gently touched the screen with his paw, the tablet didn't just respond to the touch. It began displaying information that Hannah hadn't accessed, scrolling through files and data at incredible speed. Symbols and patterns flashed across the screen, some of which looked similar to the arrangements Beak had been making with stones. Hannah called over the "Come, you need to see this." When the engineer arrived and saw what was happening, his face went pale. "That's impossible. Your tablet isn't connected to any networks right now. There's no way it should be accessing that information." But the evidence was right in front of them. Beak had somehow interfaced directly with the device, pulling up data and displaying it in ways that seemed meaningful to him. "He's not just intelligent," Hannah realized with growing excitement. "He's technologically sophisticated. He understands our equipment better than we thought possible." As the sun began to set, Beak stepped away from the tablet and looked at Hannah with an expression she had never seen before. There was something urgent in his eyes, almost like he was trying to warn her about something. He made his communication. Sounds again, more insistently this time. Then he turned toward the sky and made a different sound, one that carried across the landscape like a call. "What is he doing?" Minho asked. Hannah followed Beak's gaze upward. The stars were becoming visible in the darkening sky, and somewhere among them were other worlds, other civilizations. For the first time, she began to wonder if Beak might not be native to this planet at all. "I think," she said slowly, "he's trying to tell us that we're not alone out here." That night, as the Harmony crew settled in for sleep, none of them noticed the faint signals being transmitted from the planet's surface toward the distant stars. But somewhere in the darkness of space, those signals were being received and understood, and responses were already being prepared. The alarms started screaming at dawn. Hannah jerked awake in her quarters as red warning lights flashed throughout the Harmony. The ship's computer voice echoed through the corridors, calm but urgent. "All crew to battle stations. Unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill." She dressed quickly and ran to the bridge, where Captain Jiho and the others were already gathered around the main display. What she saw made her blood run cold. 3 massive ships hung in the space above Kepler 44 to see, each one at least 10 times larger than the Harmony. They were dark, angular vessels that looked more like weapons than exploration craft. Strange symbols glowed along their hulls in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Where did they come from?" Hannah asked, still trying to process what she was seeing. "They just appeared," Yuna said from her communication station. "No warning, no gradual approach. One moment the scanners were clear, the next moment they were." "There! Are they trying to communicate?" Captain Jiho asked. "Yes, sir. I'm getting signals on multiple frequencies. The translation matrix is working on it now." Doyan looked up from his engineering console, his face grim. "Captain, these ships are armed with weapons I don't recognize. The energy signatures are off the charts." Before anyone could respond, Eunice console chimed. Translation complete, sir. They're requesting permission to speak. Put them through, Jiho ordered. The main screen flickered and changed to show a face that would haunt Hannah's dreams for years to come. The alien had dark gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones, with eyes like black holes set deep in its skull. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. Human vessel, the creature said, each word carefully pronounced. We are Commander Keth of the Kethmoran Empire. You have something that belongs to us. Captain Jiho stepped forward, trying to project confidence he clearly didn't feel. I am Captain Park of the Earth vessel Harmony. We're on a peaceful research mission. We don't have anything of yours. The alien's face twisted into what might have been a smile, showing teeth like broken glass. You have taken possession of a war criminal. A fugitive who has eluded imperial justice for many years? We demand his immediate return. I don't know what you're talking about, Jiho replied. We haven't encountered any other intelligent life on this planet. Do not lie to us, human. Our sensors detect his energy signature on your world. The one you call Beak is known to us by another name. He is Prince Tio of the fallen Serenhai, and he will answer for his crimes against the Empire. Hannah felt the world tilt around her. Beak was the fugitive they were looking for. The gentle creature who had shared food with her, who had communicated through stone patterns and soft sounds, was apparently a wanted criminal. That's impossible, she said before she could stop herself. Beak is just an animal, a native species. We've been studying. Commander Keth's terrible gaze shifted to her. Ah, the xenobiologist. You have been deceived, human. The Serenhai are shapeshifters. What you see as a simple beast is one of the most dangerous criminals in this sector of space. The screen split to show images that made Hannah's stomach turn. Cities in flames, ships destroyed in space, bodies scattered across alien landscapes. Prince Tio led the resistance against our rightful rule, Keth continued. He is responsible for the deaths of thousands of Imperial citizens. Even if that's true, Captain Jiho said carefully, we had no knowledge of his identity. We're neutral in your conflicts. Neutrality is not possible, Keth replied coldly. You will deliver the fugitive to us within 1 of your hours, or you will be destroyed along with him. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Captain Minho said finally, we need to consider our options. That's a lot of firepower up there. Are you suggesting we hand over Beak? Hannah asked, her voice rising. He's done nothing but show us kindness. He's apparently a war criminal, Doyan pointed out. We don't know the whole story. Neither do they, Hannah shot back. Did you see those images? The Kethmoran don't look like the victims in this situation. Captain Jiho held up his hand for silence. We need more information before we make any decisions. Hannah, can you contact Beak? If he really is this Prince Tio, we need to hear his side of the story. Hannah nodded and grabbed her equipment. I'll go down to the surface. If the Kethmoran are right about him being able to understand us, maybe he can explain what's really happening. I'm coming with you, Minho said. So am I, added Doyan. If we're dealing with advanced technology, you might need an engineer. 20 minutes later, they were back on the planet's surface. Hannah had never been so nervous about meeting Beak. Before, everything she thought she knew about him had been turned upside down in the space of an hour. They didn't have to wait long. Beak appeared at the forest edge, but something was different about him. His movements were more urgent, more purposeful. When he saw them, he approached quickly and began making his communication sounds immediately. He knows, Hannah said. Look at him. He knows they're here. Beak came directly to her and pressed his large head against her shoulder, a gesture of affection he had never made before. But there was also something desperate about it, like a goodbye. Then the impossible happened. The air around Beak began to shimmer like heat waves. His white fur seemed to dissolve, replaced by pale silver skin. His body stretched and changed, becoming taller, more humanoid. Within moments, where the great white creature had stood, now stood a tall, elegant being, with silver hair and deep blue eyes. My friends, he said in perfect English, his voice soft and musical, I am sorry for the deception. Hannah stared at him in shock. This was Beak. She could see it in his eyes, but he was also something entirely different. That seemed to be made from the same material as his transformed fur, and his features were both alien and beautiful. "You're really Prince Tio," she said, not quite a question. "I am," he replied sadly. "And everything Commander Keth told you about me is both true and false. What does that mean?" Minho asked, his hand resting on his weapon but not drawing it. "It is true that I led a resistance against the Kethmoran Empire," Tio said. "It's true that many died in that conflict. But the images you saw, the destruction they showed you, that was their work, not mine." He gestured toward the sky where the enemy ships waited. "The Kethmoran conquered my people 50 years ago. They enslaved us, took our children to fight in their armies, strip-mined our worlds until they were barren rocks. When I became old enough to understand what had happened, I tried to fight back." "So you are a criminal," Doyan said. "I am a criminal." "In the same way that your ancestors who fought against oppression were criminals," Tio replied. "The Kethmoran call resistance terrorism. They call self-defense murder. They call the desire for freedom a crime against their empire." Anna found her voice. "Why didn't you tell us who you were?" Tio's expression became infinitely sad. "Because I had lost hope, Dr. Kim. When my resistance was finally crushed, when the last of my people were scattered to the winds, I came to this empty world to die. I chose the form of a simple animal because I no longer wished to be what I was." "But you didn't die," she said softly. "No," he smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like Beak had when accepting her gifts of food. "You showed me kindness when you thought I was just a beast. You treated me with respect and curiosity and care. For the first time in decades, I remembered what it felt like to have hope." The energy readings, Yuna's voice came through their communicators. "They're spiking again. I'm picking up more signals from the surface." Tio looked up at the sky with grim determination. "They're scanning for me. They will find me soon. And when they do, they will destroy your ship to eliminate any witnesses." "What?" Minho stepped forward. "We're neutral. We have nothing to do with your war." "The Kethmoran do not recognize neutrality," Tio said. "Have seen me in my true form. You know their secrets now. They cannot allow you to leave." Captain Jiho's voice crackled through the cum. "Team, you need to get back to the ship now. The Kethmoran vessels are powering weapons." Tio shook his head. "It is too late for running, Captain Park. I will surrender myself to them. Perhaps if I go willingly, they will spare your lives." "No," Hannah said firmly. "We're not handing you over to them." Dr. Kim Tio said gently, "You do not understand what you are saying. The Kethmoran fleet up there could turn your ship to dust in seconds." "Maybe," she replied, "but that doesn't make it right. You came to us for help, even if you didn't know it at the time. We don't abandon our friends." Minho and Doyan exchanged glances. "She's right," Minho said. "I've seen enough to know who the real criminals are here." "As have I," Doyan added. "If they want him, they'll have to go through us." Tio stared at them in amazement. "You would risk your lives for me? For someone you barely know?" "We know enough," Hannah said. "We know you're gentle and intelligent and kind. We know you've been hurt by these people. And we know that sometimes doing the right thing is more important than doing the safe thing. Besides," she added with a small smile, "you're family now. We protect our family." For the first time since his transformation, Tio smiled. It was the same expression she had seen on Beak's face, but now she understood the intelligence and gratitude behind it. For the first time since his transformation, Tio smiled. It was the same expression she had seen on Beak's face, but now she understood the intelligence and gratitude behind it. "Then we must prepare," he said, his voice growing stronger. "The Kethmoran will not wait much longer, and we will need every advantage we can find." Above them, the alien ships moved into attack position. The war was about to begin. Back aboard the Harmony, the crew gathered in the main meeting room to hear Tio's full story. He sat at the table like any other crew member, but his silver hair and alien features reminded everyone that their situation had changed completely. "Tell us everything, Captain," Jiho said. "If we're going to fight, we need to know what we're up against." Tio nodded, his blue eyes distant with memory. "The Kethmoran Empire has been expanding for over 200 years. They do not explore or trade. they conquer. When they find a world with resources they want, they take it. When they find people who resist, they destroy them. What about your people? Hannah asked. The Serenhai? We were a peaceful species, Tio said sadly. We believed in harmony with nature, in using our shape-shifting abilities to understand other forms of life. When the Kethmoran came, we tried to negotiate, offered to share our world with them. He paused, his hands clenching on the table. They laughed at us. They said peace was weakness, that sharing was for fools. They wanted everything and they took it. So you fought back, Minho said. Eventually, yes. But by then it was almost too late. They had enslaved most of my people, forced them to work in mines until they died. The children they took to train as soldiers for their army. I was one of the few who escaped the initial conquest. Yuna looked up from her console. Captain, the Kethmoran ships are moving into attack formation. We have maybe 20 minutes before they start shooting. What can you tell us about their tactics? Captain Jiho asked Tio. They rely on overwhelming force and terror, Tio replied. They expect their enemies to surrender quickly when faced with superior firepower. They are not used to facing determined resistance. That might work in our favor, Doyon said thoughtfully. If they're not expecting a real fight, maybe we can surprise them? With what? Minho asked. We're a research vessel. We have basic defensive shields and one small plasma cannon. They have 3 warships. Tio stood and walked to the viewport, looking up at the enemy ships. There is something I have not told you. The reason the Kethmoran want me so badly is not just because I led the resistance. It is because I know something that could destroy their entire empire. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at him. What kind of something? Captain Jiho asked carefully. The location of their central command world, Tio said. And more importantly, the frequency that controls their entire fleet communication system. If that frequency is disrupted, their ships cannot coordinate with each other. Doyon leaned forward excitedly. Could we use that against them? Possibly. But first, we would need to survive their initial attack. And then, we would need to get close enough to one of their ships to access their communication array. That sounds impossible, Yuna said. Many things that seem impossible become possible. When people work together, Tio said, looking directly at Hannah, your species has shown me something I had forgotten. Sometimes the strongest weapon is not technology or firepower. Sometimes it is the willingness to stand together even when facing certain defeat. Captain Jiho stood up. All right, here's what we're going to do. Doyon, can you modify our communication system to disrupt their frequency if Tio gives you the right information? I can try, the engineer said, but I'll need time. Minho, start preparing defensive positions. If they board us, we need to be ready. Yes, sir, the security chief replied. Yuna, send a message to Earth. Tell them what's happening here. We don't make it. Someone needs to know about the Kethmoran threat. Already working on it, Captain. Jiho turned to Hannah and Tio. You two need to figure out how to make this work. If there's any chance of stopping these ships, it's going to come from combining human determination with Serenhai knowledge. Over the next 15 minutes, Tio shared everything he knew about Kethmoran technology, while Doyon worked frantically to modify their systems. Hannah found herself translating between the two, helping them understand each other's technical concepts. The frequency changes every few hours, Tio explained. But there is a pattern. If we can identify the current frequency, we can predict the next one. That might work, Dojon said, his hands flying over his controls. But we'll only get one chance. If we miss, they'll change their entire communication protocol. Incoming transmission, Yuna announced. It's Commander Keth. Put him through, Captain Jiho ordered. The alien's horrible face appeared on the screen again. Your time is up, humans. Where is the fugitive? We've decided not to hand him over, Jiho said calmly. Commander Keth's expression didn't change. Then you have chosen death. You will have 5 minutes to reconsider before we open fire. The transmission ended. 5 minutes, Minho said grimly. Not much time for miracles. We don't need miracles, Hannah said, surprising herself with her confidence. We just need to work together. She looked around the room at her crewmates. These people had become her family over the months of their journey. They were scared, she could see it in their faces, but they were also determined. Not one of them had suggested abandoning Tio to save themselves. Tio, she said, can you use your shape-shifting abilities to help us somehow? He considered. I could take the form of a Kethmoran soldier. If we disable one of their shuttles, I might be able to infiltrate their command ship. That's too dangerous, she protested. Everything we are considering is dangerous, he replied gently. But you have shown me that some things are worth the risk. 2 minutes, Yuna called out. Modifications complete, Doyan announced. If this works, we can disrupt their communications for about 10 minutes. After that, they'll adapt. 10 minutes to do what? Minho asked. To show them that humans don't give up, Captain Jiho said, and to buy time for other ships to hear Yuna's message and come to help. 1 minute, Yuna said, her voice tight with stress. Tio walked over to Hannah and placed his hand on her shoulder. Dr. Kim, I want you to know that these past weeks have been the happiest of my life in 50 years. You gave me back my faith in the goodness that exists in the universe. We're not saying goodbye, she said firmly. We're going to get through this together. 30 seconds, Yuna announced. Everyone took their positions. Doyun's hands hovered over his controls, ready to activate the communication disruption. Minho checked his weapons one final time. Captain Jiho stood at the center of the bridge, calm and ready. 10 seconds, Yuna said. Hannah found herself thinking about the first day she had met Beak, how he had approached her with curiosity instead of fear. She had offered him food as a gesture of friendship, and he had accepted it. Now, faced with an impossible situation, they were all making the same choice to trust each other. Time's up, Yuna said quietly. The Kethmoran ships opened fire. The Harmony shook as energy beams struck their shields. Warning lights flashed throughout the ship as systems strained under the assault. Shields at 60%, Doyan called. Out. Now, Captain Jiho ordered. Doyan activated their modified communication system. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, gradually, the enemy fire became less coordinated. The 3 ships began firing at slightly different times, their perfectly synchronized attack falling apart. It's working, Yuna shouted. Their communications are disrupted. How long will it last? Jiho asked. Not long enough, Doyan replied. They're already trying to compensate, but something else was happening. On Yuna's long-range scanners, new contacts were appearing. Ships were emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Captain, she said with growing excitement, we're getting responses to our distress call. Ships are coming. How many? Jiho asked. I count at least 12 vessels, different configurations. Some I don't recognize. Tio looked at the scanner readings with amazement. Those are Sarenhai ships, Valkorian freighters, and Zinthari exploration vessels. How is this possible? Word travels fast in space, Yuna said. Our message included. Everything about the Kethmoran threat. It looks like we're not the only ones who have problems with this empire. The tide of battle was beginning to turn. The newly arrived ships might not be warships, but there were many of them, and they were coordinating their efforts. The Kethmoran, cut off from their command structure by the communication disruption, were struggling to respond effectively. Incoming transmission from the lead ship, Yuna announced. Out. Put it through, Jiho ordered. A new alien face appeared on the screen, this one with kind eyes and a gentle expression. Human vessel, this is Captain Nala of the Sarenhai ship Sunrise. We received your message about Prince Tio. We are here to help. Tio stepped forward, tears in his eyes. Nala, you survived? My prince, the alien captain said with deep emotion. We have been searching for you for years. When we heard that humans had chosen to protect you, we knew we had found people worth fighting beside. Around the system, more ships continued to arrive. The Kethmoran Empire had made many enemies over the centuries, and now those enemies were uniting for the first time. This is just the beginning, Tio said, watching the growing fleet with wonder. You have started something here that will change the galaxy. Hannah smiled, thinking about how a simple act of kindness to what she thought was an alien animal had led to this moment. Sometimes she realized the most important things began with the smallest gestures of care. The war for freedom was about to begin in earnest, The space around Kepler 442c had become a battlefield unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. What started as 3 Kethmoran warships hunting a single fugitive had turned into a massive confrontation between the Empire and dozens of species they had pressed over the years. Hannah watched from the Harmony's bridge as the unlikely fleet coordinated their attack. Serenhai ships moved like dancers, using their advanced technology to confuse enemy targeting systems. Valkorian freighters, built tough for dangerous trade routes, absorbed punishment while delivering devastating return fire. Exploration. Vessels used their scientific equipment in ways their designers had never imagined. Status report, Captain Jiho called out as the ship shook from another impact. Shields holding at 40%, Do-Yan replied, sweat beading on his forehead. The communication disruption is still working, but they're adapting faster than I expected. How many ships do we have now? Minho asked, checking his tactical display. 37 and counting, Yuna answered. More are arriving every few minutes. I'm getting reports from across the sector. Species we've never heard of are coming. To help, Tio stood beside Hannah, watching the battle with a mixture of hope and sorrow. So many good people willing to fight, he said quietly. All because you chose to show kindness to a lost creature. All because you chose to trust us back, she replied. This isn't just about you anymore, Tio. This is about everyone who's been hurt by the Kethmoran. A new voice came through the communication system, speaking in accented English. Human. Ship Harmony, this is Commander Zara of the Feline Coalition.
Hey, we heard about your brave stand.
Our people know what it means to be hunted. We stand with you. Captain Jiho activated the transmitter. Welcome to the fight, Commander Zara. Any help is appreciated. We bring more than help, the feline commander replied. We bring information. The Kethmoran Central Command world is 3 days from here. If we can defeat this fleet, we can strike at the heart of their empire. Tio stepped forward eagerly. Zara speaks the truth, Captain, but we must be careful. The command world is heavily defended. How heavily? Minho asked. 200 ships, orbital defense platforms, and ground-based weapons that can reach into space, Tio replied grimly. It will not be an easy battle. First things first, Captain Jiho said. We need to win here before we can think about attacking anywhere else. The immediate battle was turning in their favor, but slowly. The Kethmoran ships were powerful, and their crews were experienced in combat. However, the communication disruption was making it impossible for them to coordinate effectively. Captain Yuna called out excitedly, I'm picking up a transmission. From Commander Keth? He wants to talk. Put him through, Jiho ordered. The alien's face appeared on screen, but he looked different now. Less confident, more desperate. Human Captain, I offer you terms for surrender. We're listening, Jiho replied carefully. Release the fugitive to us, and we will allow the other ships to depart unharmed. You have caused enough damage for one day. Before Captain Jiho could respond, Tio stepped into view of the camera. Commander Keth, he said calmly, I have different terms for you. The Kethmoran's face twisted with rage. Prince Tio, you should have died with the rest of your people. But I did not, Tio replied. And now I have found something you do not understand. I have found allies who fight not for conquest, but for justice. Justice, Keth spat. You speak of justice while you lead these fools to their deaths. I speak of justice while I watch your empire begin to crumble, Tio said. Look around you, Commander. How many ships do you see? How many species have you angered over the years? This is what happens when oppressed people find hope. Anna felt a surge of pride as she watched Tio speak. This was not the lost, broken creature she had first met. This was a leader, someone who could inspire others to fight for what was right. The terms are simple, Tio continued. Surrender now, and we will treat you with the mercy you never showed others. Continue fighting, and face the consequences of 2 centuries of cruelty. Commander Keth's transmission cut off without another word. He's not going to surrender, Minho observed. No, Tio agreed, but others might. The Kethmoran Empire rules through fear. When that fear is broken, their power crumbles quickly. Over the next several hours, the battle continued to escalate. More ships arrived to join the growing alliance, while the Kethmorans sent reinforcements of their own. What had begun as a small skirmish was becoming a war that would reshape the galaxy. Hannah found herself working closely with representatives from a dozen different species, helping to coordinate their efforts. Her background in xenobiology made her uniquely suited to understand the different capabilities and needs of each group. The crystalline entities can absorb energy weapons, she explained to Captain Jiho during a brief break in the fighting. If we position them in front of the more vulnerable ships, they can provide protection. What about the Aquatic Federation vessels? Jiho asked. Their ships are slow but incredibly durable. They should form the core of our defensive line, while the faster ships attack from the flanks. It was like solving a complex puzzle, finding ways for completely different technologies and strategies to work together. And somehow, it was working. Incoming transmission from the Kethmoran fleet, Yuna announced. It's not Commander Keth this time. A new face appeared on the screen, younger than Keth, but with the same cruel features. I am Sub-Commander Vex. Commander Keth has been relieved of duty for his failures. I am authorized to offer new terms. We're listening, Captain, Jiho said. Withdraw your forces now, and we will consider this incident closed. Continue fighting, and we will call for additional fleets. You cannot win against the full might of the Empire. Tio moved into view again. Commander Vex, you are making the same mistake your predecessor made. You think this is about winning or losing? It is not. It is about standing up to bullies. You call us bullies? Vex snarled. You're the rightful rulers of this sector. You are thieves and murderers, Tio replied calmly. And today, your victims are fighting back. The transmission ended. But this time Hannah noticed something different in the young Kethmoran's eyes. There had been uncertainty there, maybe even fear. They're scared, she said suddenly. For the first time in their history, they're facing organized resistance from multiple species at once. Good, Minho said grimly. Scared enemies make mistakes. As if to prove his point, the Kethmoran ship suddenly broke formation and began attacking individually instead of as a coordinated unit. It was exactly the kind of desperate move that experienced commanders avoided. Now's our chance, Captain Jiho announced. All ships, focus fire on the lead vessel. If we can capture it, we can access their communication codes. The battle reached its climax as dozens of ships converged on the Kethmoran flagship. The massive vessel fought desperately, but it was outnumbered and cut off from support. Their shields are failing, Doyan reported. Weapon systems are going offline. Prepare. Boarding parties, Jiho ordered. Tio, can you help us interface with their computer systems? It would be my honor, Tio replied. 20 minutes later, it was over. The Kethmoran flagship had surrendered, and the other two ships had retreated into hyperspace. The Alliance had won its first major victory. But as they celebrated, Hannah knew this was only the beginning. Word of the battle would spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring other oppressed species to join the fight. The Kethmoran Empire would send more ships, larger fleets. What happens now? She asked Tio as they stood together on the bridge. Now we prepare for war, he said solemnly. A real war, one that will determine the future of every species in this part of the galaxy. Are you ready for that? Tio looked at her with those intelligent blue eyes she had come to know so well. I am ready because I am no longer alone. We are family now, all of us, and family protects each other. Around them, the ships of the new alliance began forming up for the journey to the Kethmoran homeworld. The war for freedom had truly begun. And at its heart was a bond forged between a human scientist and an alien prince, who had once pretended to be nothing more than a lost animal. Hannah smiled, thinking about how far they had all come. Sometimes, the most important moments in history began with the smallest acts of kindness. She was proud to be part of this story, whatever it might bring. 6 months after the battle at Kepler 440c, the war had spread across 12 star systems. The alliance that began with one human research vessel and a handful of refugee ships had grown into a force of over 300 vessels representing 47 different species. Hannah stood in the command center of the Alliance flagship, a massive vessel built by combining the best technology from dozens of civilizations. Through the main viewport, she could see the Kethmoran homeworld of Vexstar, a dark planet surrounded by defense stations and patrol ships. Final status report, Admiral Jiho called out. He had been promoted to lead the Alliance fleet, though he still insisted that everyone call him Captain. All strike teams are in position, reported Commander Nala of the Saren High Forces. The communication disruption network is ready to activate. Boarding parties standing by, added Commander Zara of the Feline Coalition. We have volunteers from 15 different species ready to take the orbital platforms. Tio stepped forward, wearing the formal robes of a Saren High Prince, but carrying himself with the confidence of a military leader. The underground resistance on Vexstar has confirmed they're ready to disable the ground-based defenses. We have allies on every level of the planet. Hannah marveled at how much had changed. The gentle creature who had once shared food with her was now coordinating the liberation of an entire world. But when he looked at her, she could still see Beak in his eyes. The same intelligence and kindness that had drawn her to him from the beginning. Remember, Admiral Jiho addressed the fleet. This isn't about revenge. It's about freedom. We're here to stop the Kethmoran from hurting anyone else, not to become like them. And the final assault began at dawn, Vexstar time, as the Alliance fleet moved in perfect coordination, each species contributing their unique strengths to the battle plan. It was like watching a symphony of different instruments all playing the same song. The crystalline entities absorbed the initial defensive fire, their translucent ships glowing brighter as they converted the energy into power for their allies. The Aquatic Federation vessels formed an unbreakable defensive line, protecting the smaller ships as they maneuvered into attack positions. Kethmoran reinforcements, jumping in from hyperspace, Yuna reported from her position at the communications. Station looks like they're committing everything they have, Gutio said calmly. That means this will end today, one way or another. The space around Vexstar became a chaos of laser fire and explosions. But unlike the desperate battle, at Kepler 44-C, this fight was different. The Alliance ships moved like they had been working together for years instead of months, each captain anticipating what their allies needed. Communication disruption is working perfectly, Doyen announced from his engineering station. Kethmoran can't coordinate their defense. Boarding parties away, Zara reported. We're taking the orbital platforms one by one. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. As the battle raged in space, the oppressed people of Vexstar itself began to rise up. Slave workers in the factories, prisoners in the detention centers, even some Kethmoran citizens who were tired of their empire's cruelty. We're getting reports from all over the planet, Yuna said with excitement. The ground-based defenses are going offline. The people are fighting back. Hannah watched the tactical display as green lights began appearing all across Vexstar's surface. Each light represented a location where the local resistance had taken control. The Kethmoran Empire was collapsing from within. This is Sub-Commander Vex. A familiar voice came through the communications system. Request permission to speak with Prince Tio. Tio nodded to Admiral Jiho, who activated the transmitter. I am here, Vex. Have you come to offer your surrender? The young Kethmoran's face appeared on the screen, but he looked different than before. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been shame. Prince Tio, I have been monitoring the reports from across our empire. 17 more worlds have declared independence since this battle began. The Imperial fleet is deserting in massive numbers. And Tio prompted. And I've been thinking about what you said months ago. About bullies and victims. About justice. Vex paused, struggling with words. I was raised to believe that strength meant taking what you wanted. But watching this battle, seeing how your alliance fights together, I think there might be a different kind of strength. Hannah felt her heart race. This was it. The moment that would determine whether the war continued or finally came to an end. What are you proposing? Tio asked carefully. Complete surrender of all Kethmoran forces. Vex said. Full independence for all occupied worlds. And ... He hesitated. Trials for those responsible for the worst crimes against other species. The command center fell silent. After months of war, the enemy was offering unconditional surrender. What guarantees do we have? Admiral Jiho asked. None, Vex replied honestly. Only my word that I am tired of being part of something that brings suffering to the galaxy. Perhaps it is time for my people to learn what cooperation means instead of conquest. Tio looked around the command center at all the different species working together. Subcommander Vex, do you see what we have built here? Beings from dozens of worlds, all fighting for the same cause. This is what the galaxy could look like if we choose cooperation over domination. I see it, Vex said quietly. And I want to be part of building that future, not destroying it. The surrender was accepted, and the war ended not with a final, devastating battle, but with former enemies agreeing to work together. It was, Hannah thought, exactly the kind of ending that Beak would have wanted. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to heal. The Alliance of Free Worlds was established, with representatives from every liberated species. Former Kethmoran. Colonies became independent nations, free to choose their own paths for the first time in centuries. Teo was offered the position of Alliance President, but he declined. I have spent too many years fighting, he told Hannah, as they walked through the gardens of the new Alliance headquarters. It is time for others to lead. What will you do instead? She asked. Return to Kepler-4 for to see with you, he said with a smile. There is still so much to learn about that world, and I think it would be a perfect place to establish a center for interspecies cooperation and understanding. Hannah felt a warmth spread through her chest. You want to go back to where we first met, where our family first began? He corrected. Gently, the Harmony had been refitted as a mobile research station, and most of the original crew had chosen to stay together. They had been through too much to separate now. Even Admiral Jiho had requested a transfer back to exploration duty. I've had enough of commanding fleets, he told them. I'd rather discover new worlds with people I trust. They prepared to. Leave for Kepler-4 for to see, Hannah reflected on everything that had happened. A simple act of kindness to what she thought was an injured animal had grown into a galactic revolution. But at its heart, it was still about the same thing it had always been about, choosing to care for others, even when it was difficult or dangerous. Do you ever regret it? She asked Tio, as they stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. Giving up your royal title, your chance to rebuild the Sarenhai Empire? Tio shifted slightly, and for just a moment, his shape blurred. When it solidified again, he was in his white lion form, the same appearance he had worn when they first met. Then, he shifted back to his humanoid form, smiling at the surprise on her face. This is who I am, he said simply. Both forms, both lives, the prince and the lost creature you found in the forest. And I have learned that the most important title anyone can have is not ruler or leader, but family. He gestured to the crew around them, all the different species working together. On their ship, we proved something important in this war, Hannah. We proved that family is not about blood or species or where you come from. It is about choosing to care for each other, to protect each other, to build something better together. Harmony jumped to hyperspace, carrying them back to the world where their story had begun. Behind them, across the galaxy, former enemies were learning to work together. The Alliance of Free Worlds was growing stronger every day. It's built on the foundation of cooperation that had started with a human scientist offering food to what she thought was just an albino lion, as Kepler-440C grew larger in the viewport. They were going home, all of them together. The war was over, the galaxy was healing, and their family was intact. She had been right about Beak from the very beginning. He had been family all along. Now the entire galaxy knew what that meant. In the distance, purple grass swayed in alien wind, waiting for their return. There were new discoveries to make, new species to meet, new friendships to build. The universe was full of possibilities, and they would explore them together. Family had proven right, just as it always did when people chose love over fear, cooperation over conquest, and hope over despair. The small acts of kindness that began. Their story had grown into something that changed the entire galaxy, and in the end, that was exactly how it should be.